Hey, 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 happy Thursday. I know it's been a while. I can't believe how this week has flown again. And I just wanted to give you a daily dose of love and some body mind medicine and just share a little bit about what's been going on in my part of the world. And I would love, if you have any questions, I'm always open to give you insights on what I know. And you can find me over at Access Your True Nature for those of you that don't know me. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about doorways. I have a curious mind, and I was thinking a lot about doorway plants and what they actually do, as well as doors. I've had a couple of things going on in my world that have been a little funky, and this thing around keeping doors open, like, I don't know, maybe you can relate to being told when you were small that you must never close doors. You must always keep your doors open, which basically means keep your options open. Don't make enemies, because you never know. You never know why the universe has thrown you together or crossed paths with somebody. And I'm in constant awe about how the synchronicity of things work when you relinquish control, because you can't always fully see where your path is going. And the best thing that you can do is really just stand still in the here and really be open to receiving things from the most unlikely places. And I've really been embracing that a lot the last couple of weeks, because there's just been so many synchronistic moments of people that have come into my awareness, into my practice, into my life. And you know how sometimes people stay, and other times we kind of get what we need from that person in wisdom and lessons and insight, without it making it right or wrong or good or bad, and then they kind of go away. And over the last couple of weeks, I've really been asking and really intensifying my demand of what I want to change, and that I'm going to do whatever it takes to change it. And looking at the contrasts of this whole doorway plants and keeping doors open and sliding doors. So looking at parallel realities of all the places where we go into regret or guilt or blame or shame or remorse because we think we've missed opportunities, and looking at the alternate reality, so to speak, of if I'd chosen this path, how different would my life have looked? And if I'd chosen that path, how different my life would look, which really takes us out of the presence of creating our life on purpose now, knowing that this is the path, because we can't ever really see where the track goes. Hi, Anjana, nice to see you here. Welcome. So as always, I'm kind of just going where the energy leads me, and we're talking about doors and doorways and what doorway plants and plant medicine can often teach us. As some of you know, I did Kampam a couple of weeks ago, and that was really where I went in with the intention of changing some things that were going on in my life, and also looking at this thing around integrity, because that was another sort of offshoot of this. And I promise there is a purpose to where I go, although I might not always know it. And I would like to stop saying so much and so much, because maybe you know and maybe you don't know. Hi, Sarah Jane. I love it. 2 Sarah Janes on the line. Nice to see you here. So can you, and this is my question to you, and I'd love to know what your insight is on it, of this whole thing around integrity. Now, I heard somebody talking the other day about financial bias, and how they did this experiment where when they took out the minimum payment due advice on the credit card statement, that people doing that on a sort of subconscious subliminal level without even knowing that we aren't trained and programmed to pay the minimum amount, right? Least effort for the most return. How we're manipulated, and we can actually stay in integrity but still be biased, right? Still be vested in the outcome of, I can either choose to keep paying the minimum amount in effort and effortlessness, or making things hard or struggle, or I can actually be invest more than the minimum, because I actually have no idea what the minimum is unless somebody tells me what that is. And this is all the places where we show up in life and say, well, we can't, and it's not possible, or this isn't required of me, or this isn't my job description, or whatever it is, or whether that is the minimum amount that is required for you to pay on your credit card. And obviously the banks don't want you to pay more than the minimum amount on your credit card, because it works in their interest to keep you in debt and paying the interest, which is quite funny. So I was looking at this whole thing around doorways and keeping doors open, or getting the knowledge, learning about something and training, doing it really, really well, including how you are creating your money flows, or the lack of money flows, in looking at your results. You know, whatever you did yesterday is the result of where you're sitting today. And this whole thing around keeping doors open, you know, keeping your options open. Interesting about, yeah, isn't it interesting? And they actually found that when they took that off people, because there's no reference point and there's no bias, that I just have to keep paying the minimum amount in order to stay out of jail, right? And I'm really exaggerating here, but I hope you're following my drift, because this is kind of weird. I'm a little discombobulated, but that's life, right? We have all these things that are thrown at us and all this info. So if I just do the minimum amount required, I will be safe. And looking at how can we still stay in integrity? How do we sleep at night when we're showing up as service providers? As you know, how does money come to you? Well, it comes through people. And currency, what's your currency? You know, for me, connection is one of the most coveted things that I have in my life, because it fills me up. It makes me feel very wealthy to be surrounded by incredible, beautiful, fully expressed people. And we have to be willing to see that we have to relinquish control to some degree, but never close doors, right? Never close doors, because you don't know why you meet people the way that you meet people. And I really am always actually quite delighted and excited about meeting people. And I can think of a million, so maybe you can see some faces coming up for you, of people that have come into your life at a pivotal time, or maybe they've come to see you, and then they get what they want, or you feel complete and you go away and you get on with your life. And then years later, they come back, and the whole dynamic, the whole relationship of how you relate to them and they relate to you has changed, because we're constantly evolving and growing. And there's this whole new expansion on what is available in opening up to receive love in a different way. And I'm just in so much deep appreciation for how people come and go in that sliding door of always being open to being surprised at, you may think that this is what you're coming to me, like many of my clients think they're coming here to get me to support them in taking their business in a different way, or turn their book into a program, or get themselves out of pain in their relationships, or with their money flows, or with their own bodies, where they're at war with their bodies or family or whatever it is, and how to resolve that trauma. And I was speaking again today, you know, I was deeply immersed in a mindfulness change process session, and it was this beautiful woman who I had crossed paths with many, many years ago, and actually bought a lot of her beautiful clothes from her shop at the time, and how a whole lot of my other friends had also had a connection with this woman at different times, and how our experiences have shaped and changed us. And we were, you know, it was really, really powerful, like it always is in session, to look at how often we have to look at the what if, you know, what is really going on underneath the fear, and how many of us are looking at a way that we think that we should be doing more, and that there's a lot of guilt and pressure to prove whether we're worthy of love. So underneath the now, in the here, there's always this deep-seated, unresolved trauma that often goes back into childhood, that shapes how we show up in relationships, and how we constantly keep repeating the pattern of the same wounding, just in a different way. And, you know, in the end, of how we have to prove ourselves worthy of love by constantly overgiving or constantly people pleasing or constantly giving up our needs and our desires and our wants and our asks, because this caretaking in our early years really shapes us in how we're showing up, and we're afraid because there's this sense that caretaking restores. If that's all you had to use right then, because you didn't have a point of reference, you didn't have any wisdom on how to do anything other than keep yourself alive, there's this sense of safety and connection when you go into people pleasing or caretaking, and really all we want is to be loved. So this survival skill is very needed when we're small and we don't have any wisdom, or if we didn't have the secure attachment of really balanced primary caregivers. This is where adverse childhood experiences show up years later in the way that it has shaped our experiences. It's like, one big formation of the first initial trauma of I'm not feeling safe, that then collects all these other littler stories and experiences, and the pattern plays out over and over again in our adult life, because we're not fully experienced in how we love. So we misidentify this thing of caring as being loving, and there's no place there that you can let go of control. So this is just very curious to me, and I would love to know if you can relate to that, where when we're able to identify and name these things, then we can have the gratitude and the empathy and the love for our younger self, who didn't have the container of safety where she could express or speak up and use her own voice. So you get to close out this old identity and say goodbye, but you don't close the door, because that is the abandonment of the child. And we're really wanting to bring the child parts in and integrate them as the secure, loving adult that you are to your child parts. And tell her when she needs to be reminded that the door is open, that I'm not leaving you again. And that love doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be struggle. It doesn't have to be sacrifice. But it really can be this beautiful place where you fill yourself up from here. You really fill yourself up from the inside out. And then it overflows onto the other people in your life easy and effortlessly. And whether they choose to receive that or not is really that place where we go into honoring. It's the integrity, right, in your makeup, where you stay true to who you are. This is the vulnerability. It's the authenticity, where you nourish your experience and your expression of love, and you then get out of the way, right? You let go of the controls of how you think people need to receive you, right? You let other people have their own experience, and you allow the doors to stay open. So that was my little insight and awareness of how things are shifting and changing, and how I let go more and more of the controls and allow other people to find their own way in their own time, and still be able to hold my child parts in a place of knowing that she's very loved. And with my client today, that we can be in a space of being deeply, deeply sorry for abandoning those parts of ourselves that really still are running our lives. It's more controlling parents. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is the influence, as you said, that we shape our experiences on how we saw love being given to us, right? Or attention. And this is where you see so many children that pre-7, you're pretty much set for life. So if you didn't have that